take a look at the rest of the P4. Brett, how's your world, brother?
Hey, Louie, thanks for having me on. As you know, it's a busy time here for Pick Six Previews with the 2026 magazine rolling off the printing press, shipping across the country. Could not be more excited for this season and for this magazine edition, and excited to break it down with you. Thanks for having me.
I kind of chuckled because on my social media, that was like spreading like wildfire. The Pick Six preview shipped, and people are excited, and people talking about how it's the must-have magazine of their college football season. And you spend only like 6 to 8 months a year working on it, so no big deal for you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, yeah, thank you. It's really spread this year more than ever, and I'm excited. I call it a never-ending research project. It's like a year-round deal. It starts during the fall when I'm watching as many games as I can. I have my 4 TVs for 14 hours every Saturday. I love every second of live action. And then throughout the week, I'm looking at condensed games and highlights and writing and doing radio, as you know. But then really the fun begins in January, looking at all my advanced stats, looking at the rosters, who's coming back, who's going pro, the transfer carousel. You got thousands of players in the transfer portal every year. Coaching carousel, probably the biggest ever. It hit the SEC pretty hard. And then writing it, editing it, designing it. It's a one-man show, so it really is a year-round project.
In all your time of doing Pick Six previews, has anything impacted what you do, like the portal?
No, that's the number one thing. I mean, I would also say conference realignment, the way that year to year we were adding new teams into the book. I do Power 4 only. I give you 2 full pages, 1,000+ words every team, but I do it the Power 4 only. Over the years with the additions of BYU and SMU, UCF, Houston, we kept adding teams every year, so it was like having to learn a whole new program history and coaching staff and schemes, and so it's been fun adding some teams, but nothing has changed it more than the portal, just the process, because it used to be very formulaic. You'd look at it, returning starters, recruiting, and then who went pro early. That was it. And in fact, I went back and looked at my first edition back in 2012, 15 years ago, and it's really funny looking back because I had a tiny little section on one page called The Transfers, and there was like 10 names. So it's really gone full circle to be now thousands of players moving around. But it's a lot more work, but I think it provides a better product for the reader. It's more valuable now because it's hard to keep up with, let alone your own team, let alone the whole conference or the whole nation. So I break it down position by position, looking at who's coming in, who's leaving. Were they starters? Were they all conference at their last spot? How are they going to fit into this new scheme? And make it really readable and enjoyable, too. I know it's some numbers in the book, but really putting it into readable formats. So you're right, man. That has been the biggest thing, transfer portal. Now, I'd argue NIL also, but that impacts more the teams themselves with their roster building. But from my point of view as a writer and putting this magazine together, the transfer portal was a game changer.
Well, you do this thing that on the Louie Bellina show I call Speak Human, because you take all these numbers, breakdowns, and the formulas that you have. You got to take it all so the average college football fan can digest it. You can't just blurt formulas onto a page or anything, because you got to speak human. College football.
Oh, for sure.
Someone at a tailgate who's having a beer and 3 brats has to understand what you're saying, bro. Right? And that's something I think you do great. You speak human.
Oh, I appreciate it. That's the goal. I mean, I think it becomes really boring if you're reading some other publications or some people talking about their advanced formulas and this XYZ formula is 0.125. Okay, what's that really mean in football terms? You know what I mean? A lot of acronyms and formulas. So, I do have my numbers on the side of the page. I color coordinate them. That way you look at a quick glance, you see, okay, a lot of green. This team can run the ball. This team can throw the ball, I also have very easy to understand formulas like explosive passing. Everyone knows what explosive passing is. You know what I mean? So, I think that's true. And you want to have your numbers to back up your takes and your opinions and your predictions, but you want to make it enjoyable for the reader. And I think I strike a balance. And, I love talking to head coaches and coordinators because I like to hear the X's and O's. I like to hear the schemes, how these schemes are being installed in the off season, what their strategies are with recruiting and branding. So it is fascinating putting it all together. And yeah, that's it. I like what you said there. It passes the tailgate test. You know what I mean? And people are passing around their copies and talking about it at the tailgate, and that's the goal.
We are visiting with Brett Ciancia of Pick Six Previews. He joined us on the D4 Land Services hotline. Brett, ACC. Now, Miami's the favorite. I don't think that's a revelation. But looking at your unit breakdown, holy cow, are they the favorite? They are the number one unit at every position but linebacker.
Yeah, and they got some good ones there, too. They got Motore back. But, yeah, this is, when they joined the ACC back around 2003, 2004, I remember they were coming off a couple national title runs. They called it the All Canes Conference, as if they were going to come in and win the ACC every year there. And if you look back, they have not won the ACC yet. We're talking 20 years. It's hard to believe because they've had a couple playoff teams and certainly the dynasty-looking team going forward. But I think they finally win it this year. I think they finally win it outright. They have the offense. They have the defense. They have the lines of scrimmage. I think they upgraded at quarterback. And I liked Carson Beck last year. He was veteran. He actually tucked the ball down and ran in the game winner there in the semifinal. But I think they upgraded quarterback by bringing in Darian Mensah from Duke. He just led Duke to an ACC title game. And what he does, he leads the country in downfield passing. So you're going to see them put this wide receiver core to work, downfield, vertical shots. That'll open up the run game even more. So with Miami, while I think they lose some first-rounders off their defense, I think they may make up for it and then some with this upgraded passing offense. So All Canes Conference, I think they can finally claim it. It took 2 decades, but I think they're going to get that title this year.
I'm going to say again for people that maybe are like, wait, what? When Brett and Pick Six previews, they break down every team by ranking them in their own conference. It's called a unit ranking. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, O-line, D-line, linebacker, DB. Miami in the ACC has the number one unit in their conference at every position but linebacker. And that one linebacker's third. I believe that's a 3 ranking. So they basically, they're not just picked to win it. They are overwhelmingly, undisputably, undubitably, if there were 16 votes, they get 15 and a half favored to win it.
Yeah. I mean, look at, in the book I have my all-conference team, the all-ACC. They got 15 players on the all-ACC team. It is so loaded. And I'll tell you why, too. It's, if you look at the recruiting profiles of these ACC programs, there really isn't much recruiting firepower in the league. It's really just Miami and Clemson as the only 2 top recruiters. Florida State used to be up there, but they have shifted their focus more towards the transfer portal. So when you're looking at a high school recruiting pipeline, it is really just Miami at the top. They stack these top 10 classes every year. And then, unlike Clemson, they also then go into the transfer portal and sign top 10 transfer hauls, too. So Cristobal has really built an NFL factory down there. You're seeing it at every position group. We saw it in January in the playoff run they made. I really like this Miami team, not just to win the ACC, but I've got them number 3 nationally. So I'm higher than any other publication on this team. I think they're for real. We already saw glimpses last year. Almost won a national title. I think they can get back into contention again this year.
The 2 teams that maybe, if things were to break, but the 2 teams in the ACC that maybe could put up a fight, Louisville, you have them picked 2nd, and SMU, you have them picked 3rd.
Yes, sir. And when you think of it, both these teams actually beat Miami on the field last year in the regular season. And it was, SMU played them tough down to the wire and got that game-winning rushing touchdown at the end. Louisville picked off Carson Beck 5 times in their matchup. So both these teams, if they get to the ACC title game, they got a shot to knock off Miami for sure. And I like a lot about both. I ultimately went with Louisville, and I think what you have here, you have Coach Braum. He's got a great track record developing quarterbacks. This time around, he brings in a different type of quarterback. He usually has these pocket passers. This time he brings in a 6'5", 220 athlete from Ohio State. And when I was talking to him, I asked him, hey, this is a little bit different than your usual quarterback. And he chuckled and he kind of hinted. He's saying, yeah, we have some tricks up our sleeves with this new scheme. So look for a more running quarterback, a more athletic type there. It's going to open up all the other position groups around him. So I like Lincoln Kienholz to win the job, obviously, and contend for all ACC there at quarterback. Love their pass rush, love their defense. So I went Louisville. Now, SMU is close. I like what they have built there. They've really accelerated their move up from the non-AQ to the Power 4, and it used to take 5-10 years to make the transition. Think of how Utah and TCU, when they transitioned in, but they really leveraged the transfer portal here at SMU, got a lot of linemen, Power 4 linemen on both lines of scrimmage, and you love Kevin Jennings at quarterback. So, yeah, SMU's right there. I got both them in my top 20. They can both contend, but ultimately I got Miami beating Louisville in the conference title game.
What has been? Is it just straight up portal? Is it that basic and straightforward for SMU, their transition? Because they have won basically from the start. And I'm not saying they're an 11-win team every year, but they haven't had to struggle like others.
Yeah, well, it's a couple of things. I give Rhett Lashley his due. I think he's one of the best coaches in America for what he's been able to pull off. His X's and O's on offense are excellent. He identified the one area that if you want to make the jump from non-AQ to Power 4, you need to upgrade your lines of scrimmage. You know what I mean? You can find a couple receivers here and there and fit them into a scheme, but you need to have a two deep of Power 4 size linemen, and there's a huge divide between the Power 4 line and the non-AQ FCS type lines. So I think the first transfer class, I think it was like 9 or 10 linemen from Power 4 rosters that they just stockpiled onto their team, and it paid off. And so I'll say X's and O's from Lashley. I'll say lines of scrimmage. And then they did hit on both quarterbacks. They've had a couple good ones now. They do have Kevin Jennings back, a dual threat guy. He's healthy now. He's going to razzle and dazzle again. He's a real gunslinger. So all those things together, and also quite honestly, a winnable conference. I'm really not very high on this ACC. I know we talked Miami and Louisville. Clemson used to be the powerhouse, but outside of there, this conference really is probably the weakest of the 4 Power 4 leagues. So it's winnable. You can come in there, you can start to stack 8, 9, 10-win seasons right away. So all that together, and I will say also the budget. You guys being down there in Texas, you know the Texas football money that goes around, and I think SMU is putting it all towards their roster, as they should, and it's all clicked for them.
How many schools could have told the ACC, no, you can keep the revenue money? That's how they got in. They told them, you can keep the revenue money.
I know.
We'll take a 4-year, because they're like, well, you'd have to take 50% off it, but we still won't take it. How about if we took 0? Like the SMU cut a deal that no one can do unless you've got fat checks.
Oh, absolutely. And, it speaks to the appetite of their football down there. They wanted so badly to get back to the power stage. It's been since, the Pony Express days. It's been 40 years, and it's been a long, arduous task for them to break through finally. So, when they found any kind of sliver of an opportunity, I mean, think of it, SMU, Southern Methodist in the ACC, it doesn't make any sense. I know we've thrown the maps out the window, but they found a path into the Power 4. They took it, and they quickly raised that money up, I'm sure, without batting an eye. And now, look, you got conference title appearances, playoff appearances, so there's a lot to like from SMU.
Brett, let us go to the Big 12. Look, I consider them junk party football. Like, I don't know how good top end strength of, couldn't care less. But if you want to watch a game and just have a beer and laugh and just have fun with your friends, Big 12 football, I think, is the new Pac-12 after dark, except it can happen during the day. They're fun, even when it's bad. I love Big 12 football. It's entertainment at its finest. But to the strength, to who should win, Texas Tech seems they have the number 1 unit at 5 out of 7, the number 2 unit at another. They seem to be a very heavy favorite for Pick 6 previews.
Yeah, they are. And first off, I want to say you're right about the conference at large. I love this conference. There's so many different styles of play, and the stadiums are rocking, too. When you turn on some of these ACC programs, like a game at BC or Wake Forest, they're empty ghost towns. But you watch a Big 12 game, I know at Utah and BYU, like these cameras are literally shaking when there's a big play. Oklahoma State with their paddles, and the fans are really engaged. So I love this conference. In terms of the champion, I was a little bit shocked coming out of Big 12 media days when the coaches did their poll. The coaches picked BYU to win the thing. And, I right away I kind of clocked this as maybe some off-the-field politicking going on after what happened here with Texas Tech and their quarterback fiasco. But because there is no way you could look at this league and pick anybody other than Tech. They destroyed everybody last year. They destroyed BYU twice. And now, I got 2 numbers for you. It's really a difference about talent. I got 2 numbers. One, you look at the transfer portal. They signed 24 stars in the transfer portal the last 2 cycles combined, which is incredible. The average Big 12 team has signed 2. So you're talking 20 to 2 through the transfer portal. And then if you're thinking, well, hey, the transfer rankings are probably wrong. Well, okay, I don't think the NFL watch list would be wrong, too. That's a billion-dollar industry. NFL watch list, they have 27 draft watch list guys. 27, and the next place team in the conference is 12 with TCU. So 27 to 12 in the NFL watch list. So all that to say, this roster is loaded again. I know the question is at quarterback, but we got to see Will Hammond in there against Utah. Remember, he came in for an injured Baron Morton. It was a tie game. He led 4 straight touchdown drives. So I really like Texas Tech. no matter who's at quarterback, whether it's Hammond, whether he gets back in time healthy. It's just too deep of a team. So it's Texas Tech and then a whole wide open run to get to go face them in Dallas.
Do you think the Big 12 could put 2 into the college football playoff?
The only way that's going to happen is if somebody pulls the upset on December 2nd. You know what I mean? Because that would grant the auto bid to the team that upset Texas Tech, and then maybe a 12-1 Tech might be good enough to get an at-large. So it reminds me of kind of in March Madness when you're watching those conference title games in March and you have a major upset. They call it a bid steal. That's the only way the Big 12 gets 2 is if somebody can steal a bid with the auto conference title win. So it's hard to bank on that here in July. I'm going to say no. I think it's Texas Tech's league. I think they're going to run away with it and then also win that conference title.
Tell you what, though, for the Big 12, that's fine. Just tune into any game and enjoy. You see Houston going against Arizona. I mean, Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State plays Kansas. It doesn't matter. The games never disappoint. Maybe it is because there's so many different styles that you can get these bizarre matchups. Maybe it's because there's history with so many teams. I don't know. I don't want to know. I just know I love watching them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think what it is, too, is that let's put Texas Tech aside. Outside of Tech, there's so many teams in this, like, ranked number 20 through 40 for me, like that middle tier kind of team where they all could beat each other on any given Saturday. They're all going to be one-score games. I think it was Houston had 7 one-score games last year. It's like all these Big 12 games come down to the wire. And then, of course, you're right about this, how it's like the new Pac-12 after dark. After watching games for 12 hours, you get around the midnight hour, and all the weird stuff starts happening out west. You have the Arizonas with trick plays and the BYU and Utah teams. Like it's just craziness. So, yeah, it is very enjoyable to watch. The fans love it. It's good football, different styles of play, and really a wide-open field to go challenge Tech.
Brett, let's grab a timeout, come back, and we got the Big Ten.
Okay, sounds great.
Brett Ciancia is with Pick 6 Previews. The magazine has shipped. You can buy digital. And it's one of those, if you're a college football fan, this is one of those must parts of your college football season. The information, and it's so much more than that. And for me, I love finding all these nuggets. I had no clue. I get hooked like a junkie on the positional rankings. And he's hanging out with us here on the D4 Land Services Hotline. Last week was SEC. This week is the rest of the P4. And when we return, the Big Ten.
You can hear Aggie football online at RadioAggieland.com.
Brett, I need to know how you rank strength of conferences. Do you need the national champ? Is it about your middle and bottom? Because you know that's the SEC versus Big Ten debate, right?
Yeah, that's how it goes. Trust me, I hear about it all 365 days there on Twitter. It's the never-ending battle. Yeah, so a couple different ways you can look at it. I mean, some people just look off the who wins the national title. If that's the case, then how come nobody told us that the ACC was the hardest when Clemson kept winning national titles? I think it goes deeper than just who wins the national title. The way that I like to do it is how many teams are playoff contenders, because we saw last year it's just getting into the bracket and see what happens. Sometimes it's a crapshoot, who gets hot in January, who's dealing with injuries, or now, I hate to say it, but coaching changes with Ole Miss, for example. So my thing is I know the Big Ten had upper echelon. You had an Indiana breakout team. You had a Michigan once-in-a-generation team. Ohio State put it together. I think the SEC still, because they have the most different schools that can go contend every year for a playoff. If you're looking at here my Pick 6 Previews magazine, I do have Oregon and Ohio State 1-2 in the nation. I got them in the top 2 in the country. But from there, I have 8 SEC teams in my top 15. So I think that the SEC, 8 of that's half the conference could go play in a playoff. I cannot say the same about the Big Ten. When you get down to the 6th or 7th or 8th in the Big Ten, you're talking Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Nebraska tier. And I think those would all get their doors blown off by Tennessee or A&M or LSU this year.
Fair enough. And there is no definitive facts in this conversation, but they're winning 3 straight, I think, makes this a conversation. Spiking even every other year or randomly means nothing, and winning 3 straight makes it a conversation now.
Yeah, it's more of a conversation. It used to be laughed about. It used to be a domination. What was it, like 10 out of 12 years, the SEC, they were so dominant for most of that BCS and early playoff years. So, yeah, another thing, too. I mean, I'm tracking all 68 Power 4 teams, and I see the talent flowing back and forth between these leagues. It's really a one-way street between the ACC, Big 12. All the best players flow up to the Big 10 and up to the SEC. You don't see it the other way. You're not seeing all SEC players going down to the ACC or down to the Big 12. But those two fit together where it's both in that direction. So it's definitely the top two. You see that TV money and with coaching salaries, which means better coaches. Here's one thing for you for the SEC, though, and I put this tweet out there every year in April. It gets people all fired up. It's such a simple tweet. It's just, hey, who has had the most NFL draft picks every year in the draft? And I listed out, 2003, SEC, 2004, SEC. It's a really ridiculous tweet, but they've got like 20 straight years in a row of the most draft picks. And you know who's not biased or has SEC bias or conference bias? $1 billion industry like the pros. I mean, they're drafting the best players. They're fully vetted. They're scouted. They're tested at official combines. These are the best players in the country. They are recruited the best down there. They play the best high school football down there, play the best college. Now they're the best pros. So it's just there are some facts you could look towards like that. But, hey, the age-old debate, I wonder how many more years we go with the Big Ten, though, because I do have a fourth year here. I have Oregon winning the national title. Would be 4 straight Big Ten, 4 different Big Ten. That would start to upset some folks down south.
Let us go to the Big Ten this year. You've already revealed that you have picked Oregon to win the Big Ten. You have Ohio State 2, Indiana 3. Those 3 seem to be on their own tier. Maybe Indiana isn't even on the Ohio State-Oregon tier.
Well, I think with the Signetti factor, I have to consider them a serious playoff and national title contender again because the usual stuff that I and everyone else would look towards, you look at recruiting, you look at transfers, you look at the advanced metrics, how they performed offense and defense. Like Oregon and Ohio State fit the billing of those. We know what we have with them, the way they recruit and bring in all these NFL players. Indiana with Signetti, they had that secret sauce. It was a bunch of 2-star kids, a bunch of James Madison players. Like, that would have never been nobody caught on to that in 2024. They were picked towards the bottom again of the conference. And then in 25 last year, even despite coming off a playoff run, I think they checked in around 15th or 20th range in the AP poll. Nobody had them back in the playoff, let alone a national title. So there's like this secret magic that he's got going. And, it'd be crazy to discount it too far. I think they'll still be a contender.
Fair enough. So Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana. And with Oregon, their lowest ranking, they're not below 4 in anything. And that's about Ohio State. They're kind of the same team if you do an overall, when you add up the averages.
Yeah, yes. With Oregon, what really stands out to me is you're talking 3 straight years of top 5 recruiting. That's only Alabama, Georgia level, and maybe Ohio State. But out of those names, Oregon also on top of that, they added top 5 transfer classes. So the sheer amount of NFL talent on this roster, it's number 1 in future mock NFL draft picks. I know we're still far away from April, but at the best glance we have right now at a mock draft, they're number 1 in terms of NFLers. You look at they would have had Dante Moore drafted in the first round as their quarterback in the NFL draft last year. He came back. The offensive line brings back All-Americans. The receivers are healthy after a couple injuries to their number 1 guy, number 2 guy last year. The whole defensive line, all 4 guys are all Big Ten for me. It looks silly on the page, but they're all future high picks in the draft. And then the secondary has 4 5-stars in the secondary. So, yeah, I mean, everything that I would look at, I love Dan Lanning's schemes. His coordinator picks are going to be good this round again. I just don't see any flaw. And then to the Pick 6 Previews readers out there, last year, if you were reading my 25 magazine, I had Oregon on the Oregon page. I said, hey, not this year, 2025, but next year, 2026. I'm going to call for them to win that national title. And here we are 12 months later. I'm sticking to that future. I'm sticking with Oregon for 2026.
So you have revealed, and we're going to have you back on, probably next Monday, to be fair. I haven't emailed him yet just to let everyone in on it. But he's going to join us again here in August, and we're going to do the predictions. We've been previewing conferences and teams. We'll do predictions here coming up in August. But you've already shared. Oregon's your national champ pick.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm going with Oregon. Looking at my advanced stats, and not to bore you with the terms of it, basically how they perform against what the opponent usually averages. If an opponent allows 20 a game, how do they do against that average? So I have those numbers in the book. They were the only team in America last year, top 5 in both the offense and the defense categories of those stats. So I love that. You bring back plenty of starters off of both sides of the ball. The key stars are back. If they lost their stars to the pros, they reload with 5 stars or all conference guys from other teams. So I really like what you got with Oregon. Now, here's the thing. If this was the BCS era and you had to go undefeated, I wouldn't call for them to win it. This schedule's brutal if you look at it for them. They've got they draw Ohio State, they draw Michigan, Washington, USC on the road. It's a tough schedule. So they might go 10-2, but I think by the time January rolls around, they're going to have the most 5-star NFL depth to go the distance, to go win 4 playoff games. So I like them to win the national title. They're my pick.
Yeah, and it's funny. And as soon as you started, I knew where you were going with it, because it's no longer about winning the conference. It's about making the playoff. That's it.
Yeah. Just get to January and see what happens. Look at Miami last year; they were the last team in, barely made it in by a hair, and then they brought their best in January. And you see teams grow up too, because you're talking about your last regular season games around Thanksgiving. You have 5 or 6 weeks of practice and scouting and development. These best teams in the country, they're usually younger because they're always sending their juniors and seniors to the pros. So like a lot of young guys, it takes until halfway through the years to get up to speed. So by the time January rolls around, they're like these NFL machines. Like look at Ohio State when they won the national title. It's night and day between their team that played in January versus who played in November. So
wasn't that Miami story? Because when you look at Miami in the regular season, they're barely winning these 1-score games. They're having to come from behind. They needed some miracle throws. But once Miami peaked down the stretch, they just started actually kind of dominating. I know they played close games because they didn't offensively. They weren't explosive necessarily, even though they had Malachi Toney. But they were a different team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the A&M fans listening, they got to see the physicality that Miami brought. And, last year I would say A&M had some of the best lines of scrimmage in the country as well. I love their O-line, love the D-line, and we saw so many of them get drafted. I think it might have been an A&M record. Quote me if I'm wrong there. But so I really respected A&M's trenches. And then Miami came in and really went toe-to-toe. And was kind of a coin flip, 50-50 type game. It's just that Miami powered them over a little bit in the second half with their run game, and there was, of course, the end zone pick. But not to rehash that, what I'm getting at is, Miami really grew up, increased their physicality and beefed up over that November-December stretch, and it looked a lot different in the playoffs. So look for that again with some of these super recruiter teams, your Oregon, Ohio State, Miami, Notre Dame, even Georgia, Texas. These kind of teams are ramping up as the season continues.
Yeah, A&M had 10 draft picks this year, which shattered, okay, this is where it gets tricky. It's the all-time high, tied in 76, but if you go by the modern draft, it's the highest ever modern draft. So 10 this year, tied or broke, depending on how you want to look at the draft.
Yeah, and we saw it live all season. 11-0 start. They played really well on both sides of the ball all the way. Marcel Reed, I know he's not even one of those draft picks, but he was a Heisman candidate all the way up until that finale. I was impressed with A&M. And not to get back in, we already did our A&M piece, but now that we're talking, I'm interested with this schedule. It's going to heat up a little bit, and it wasn't A&M's fault that the SEC, they got a favorable draw last year. They faced 7 of the bottom 8 last year. They took care of business, but it was an easy draw. Now they went out, they did beat Notre Dame, so certainly deserved their playoff home game. I was vouching for them all the way. But you look at their SEC draw this time around, it's a bit tougher. So. And that goes for a lot of SEC teams, quite honestly, because of the 9th edition of the game. But it's going to be a tough road for them.
Dude, we'll visit again. I'll email you shortly. Don't worry about it. Thank you always. Appreciate the knowledge. Appreciate the time.
No, thanks, Louie. Anytime.
Be excellent, man. Brett Ciancia joining us on the D4 Land Services Hotline. Again, we're going to visit again in August, and we're going to do predictions. Again, last week was SEC. We did the rest of the P4 this Monday, and predictions will be up next. This is the Louie Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric on the Zone.
Aggie football sounds even better online. Check it out at RadioAggieland.com.
Our final coach from SEC Media Days, Ryan Silverfield, Arkansas. Let's listen in together. Leave the mic alone.
Silverfield to our podium. He will go straight to questions. We'll start here on the left side, second row.
Leo Haggerty, Amped Up Sports Draft Nation here in Tampa. Coach, obviously you want everybody to get better year to year. The 3 guys you brought with you, they got to have good seasons. Are there 1 or 2 guys on either side of the ball that really have to step up, have that great season for you to be successful?
I think a lot of it is going to be, looking at the rest of the defensive line. We know Quincy Rhodes Jr., what he's been able to do and his history at Arkansas. But we need the rest of the defensive line to step up. Not only the starters, but we need to find depth. And that's one of the positions that we're looking for who can continue to improve. We got guys like Hunter Osborne that had some success at the University of Virginia. We need him to step up and have a big year, but the rest of those guys around them on the defensive line need to step up. And then, offensively, right? Sutton Smith, who we bought here, we have high expectations for what he's going to be able to do. And a guy like Braylon Russell, right? And some of those other running backs that we have high expectations for as well. And then, we have a lot of names in the wide receiver room. Who's ultimately going to step up and be the difference maker? And then the question everybody wants to know, obviously, we need one of those two quarterbacks to step up and be the guy.
Front row.
Hello, Coach. Jacob Worthing, KRUI Sports. You've won by developing programs. What was the first thing you wanted to change when you got to Arkansas?
Yeah, my very first week on the job, you sit down and you meet with all the players, right? You try to find out what are some of the good things that have occurred around here, what are some of the things that need to be fixed, and then you put your head down and you just work. Obviously, every new coach is going to talk about changing the culture, but more than anything, I want these guys to have full buy-in in everything we were doing. And it starts with the winter workouts and how we go about those things. How do you build it and then do it the right way? And so the number one thing I said, you watch some of the things that have occurred, and I don't like talking about the past, but we've got to play with better effort. And so we demanded that from them in everything they do. And everybody says, well, how do you measure that in January, right? How do you measure that in spring ball? But you just hold them accountable to those things. And not only the effort on the field in between the white lines, but then, what we're doing academically, what we're doing in the community. Ultimately, are we getting better every single day in the weight room? And I think for me, that was the biggest thing is, I think there's only a handful, right? The less than 20 guys that returned from last year's roster, and then very little staff left. And, it was important for me to say, hey, does it look different? Is this feeling like it's going the right direction? And I think we are.
Right side, third row, then pass it to your right.
Good morning, Coach. Abby Miller with the Reflector from Mississippi State. Sutton Smith hasn't yet played in an Arkansas jersey, but you chose to bring him today. What did you see from him at Memphis that we can be expected to see this season?
Yeah, Sutton's one of those guys that was, loyal to us the whole time at Memphis. He committed to us as a junior in high school and had opportunities to leave. There's a lot of SEC schools that came calling for him over the years, and he just said, no, that it's not the right situation or the right time. And, our Arkansas fans, whether they like it or not, they obviously remember the one run he ripped down their sideline during the game. So they'll at least remember. I think they're glad now he's in an Arkansas jersey. But he's the type of young man that we feel like we can line up all over the field. He kind of reminds me, if anybody remembers some of our running backs in the past at Memphis, Kenny Gainwell, Tony Pollard, a guy that can easily line up as a receiver, can line up as a returner. And so I think he brings a unique dynamic, not only with his legit speed, but his ability to catch the ball in the backfield, line up in different spots. And so we're really, really excited to see him. I think the SEC is going to sit there and say, wow, they got a special one, Sutton Smith.
Fourth row on the end, then pass it to your left.
Yeah, hey, Coach. Evan Kamiko, News 9, Oklahoma City. When you're getting to Fayetteville, in your introductory press conference, he said you didn't really explore the town too much. Just what's really stood out since being in Fayetteville now for a couple of months about the city and the area of Northwest Arkansas? Besides
missing you, Evan, it's been great. I think when you get there, everybody tells you, man, Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas is a special place. And until you go to visit, until you have the opportunity to see it, it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's a great place to raise a family. And so I've enjoyed it. I think the U.S. World News Report had Fayetteville as for 11 straight years as the top SEC town in the country. And there's a reason why. And you think about all the resources that are provided in Northwest Arkansas, it's been great. Obviously, just looking at me, I've enjoyed all the restaurants in that area, and that's been a lot of fun. But it's great. I early in the mornings, I take, jogs on campus and get to see the beauty. I love coming up the path of Old Main and then seeing some of the history around there. It's been a lot of fun. It's a place I'm excited to call home for a long, long time.
Right side on the aisle.
Hey, Coach. Sports, 24/7 Sports. I'm wondering, in your opinion, after 8 months, what is the biggest obstacle in front of you at Arkansas? And also, what is something that gives you an advantage that Arkansas has that may other places?
Yeah, Trey, I think the biggest thing right now is people want to continue to talk about what occurred in recent history. If we want to talk about the history of Arkansas, let's talk about Darren McFadden, right? Let's talk about the '64 national championship team. Let's talk about the success of all the other things that are occurring at the university. Unfortunately, a lot of the obstacles we're facing in the short term, right now, that it's our job to change that narrative is what's occurred over the last couple of years. And it's my job, it's our job as a staff and as a program, where this time sitting here next year, we're not talking about negative results from the year before, where it's saying, wow, you've got this program heading in the right direction. Let's continue to talk about the future. And so I've got to get people to quit looking in the rearview mirror. Now, we hopefully have learned from the mistakes of our past. And a lot of things has been, when I got there, Trey, is showing, hey, this is what it looks like to have a successful program. One of the things I appreciate about the administration, everybody along saying, okay, cool, what does it need to look like? How does this need to look? What do we need to fundraise for? What about the building? What about nutrition? What about academics? And that, what I've been so appreciative is they've kind of said, okay, whatever you need to do to accomplish to get this program back to where it needs to be, so be it. And along the lines I mentioned, you talk about the resources in Northwest Arkansas. And every time I have a microphone in front of me, I'm going to continue to talk about, right, how do we get Walmart on board, right? You think about that. Headquarters, Tyson's Chicken. John Tyson's been tremendous to us and the other athletic programs, and obviously the entire Northwest region. JB Hunt, how do we get them involved? All these great resources that a lot of these other SEC towns may not have. And so we're so fortunate we've had the backing of so many things. You talk about the growth of Seven Brew, all these other places. Man, how do we use that in our unique region in order to continue to set us up for success on the football field?
Fourth row, and then pass it over your shoulder.
Hey, Coach Cameron Lejeune, WAK, Montgomery, Alabama. You guys have an ongoing quarterback battle right now. Could you just talk about KJ Jackson and what unique skill set he would bring to your team if he were to be named the starter?
Yeah, KJ is one of the hardest working guys, and I can say the same for AJ. But, KJ, obviously an Alabama native, has been tremendous. Since the day I got the job, hey, how quickly can I learn the offense? Even before he said he was coming back, he was asking, can we sit down, can we meet, can we talk about protections? And he's so intelligent. He works his tail off. He cares so much about it. He's a leader. Obviously he's got some strength with his legs as well. He's a lefty, so that's kind of unique. It's been quite a while since I've been around a left-handed quarterback. But he does just such a tremendous job. He commands the presence of the offense. We tell him the things he needs to continue to do is make great decisions with the football. So whoever our starter is, whether it's KJ or AJ, can they put the offense in the right position to have success and ultimately put the ball where it needs to be? And sometimes that is maybe calling a change in protection. Maybe that's taking the 5-yard check down or throwing the 50-yard pass. But I've been quite pleased with KJ's progress, and he's certainly talented enough to start in the SEC.
On the aisle on the right.
Trevor Denton with Way 31. Coach, there's been a lot of talk about aura the last couple of days, which seems a little crazy. But what do you want people to know about you that are maybe judging you before you get the chance to even get started at this job? I
love it. I never thought coming here today, these last couple of days that people would talk about aura. First off, I don't know what the hell that means. Like I said all along, I don't. If it's about fashion and all that stuff, certainly have no aura. But if it's about having a presence about yourself, those that are around me know that at least I'm a genuine, real dude. And I think you talk to our players, they get a presence around me, they get it. And if aura means being cool, doing all those things, well, listen, I got a hot wife for a reason, right? I mean, I can get down, I can recite, Notorious B.I.G. lyrics, I can recite, whatever you want me to do, let's go. But I've got enough aura, enough to find ways to win football games, and that's all that matters.
Hey, Coach David. Hey, Coach David Gibson, WJTV in Jackson, Mississippi. You were at Memphis. You're really successful. What can you bring from Memphis and your time there to Arkansas?
I think one of the things, at Memphis for 10 years, obviously 6 years as a head coach, in short-term thinking, you think about regionally, right? Obviously recruiting Jackson, obviously recruiting, different parts of Arkansas. I think in the short term that's been beneficial for us. But also, I think if you're successful, it doesn't matter if you're successful at the group of 5. If you're successful coaching D3, you're going to find ways to bring some of that success and how to run a program into the SEC. And Arkansas will be no different. Hey, this is the building blocks it's going to take, and this is how we're going to go about our program. And you think about that, not only the success at Memphis, but as college football continues to move forward, right, the ever-changing landscape of college football, one of the things I've been fortunate to lean on is my NFL background. Coaching in the NFL for 7 years, I think that gives us a huge advantage in the SEC. You look at some of these other SEC coaches, I don't know how many have actually coached in the NFL. And so I think that's going to allow us a leg up in the ever-changing deal, right? We know good and well there's going to be news about changing college football next week and the week after that. And so how do you stay ahead of it? And then having, since I've been a head coach since 2020, all those head coaches hired in 2020 have had to deal with changes, right? And dealt with different problems from COVID to the transfer portal to NIL and all the things that continue to come along with it. So being a head coach during those times is going to allow us to continue to handle the challenges and opportunities ahead of us.
Right side on the aisle, fourth row.
Hey, Coach. Jed May with UGAsports.com. Last fall, you kind of made some headlines with some comments about Georgia and this arrest there and that kind of stuff. Now that you're in the league, have you spoken to Kirby Smart about those comments and just what is your relationship like with him?
Yeah, Jed. I'll say this. At every stop I've been, I actually learned this from Jim Caldwell, the head coach of the Lions, is I think it's important that you show things that are going to teach lessons to current players. So at Memphis and still doing it here at Arkansas is we talk about things that are occurring in society that we can learn from. I think the best thing for an 18 to 23-year-old is to learn from other 18 to 23-year-olds. So we constantly show examples of things that we need to avoid. And have we certainly been perfect? Heck no. But we'll show examples. Hey, maybe this is a guy in the NFL that made a mistake. This is a guy in the NBA. This may be a college swimmer that bet on something. And so we're constantly trying to educate our guys. When it happened, listen, I've got the deep most respect for Kirby Smart and the Georgia Athletic Department and everything that he's about. Obviously, he's done it at a high level, so certainly a lot of respect for him. And when it occurred, I reached out to him, but he's always been great to me. Even my time at Memphis, he allowed us to come be a part of the camps, and so I think he knew that it was no ill will, but listen, you got a lot of respect for him and what they're doing.
Two final questions, left side, then pass it forward.
Yeah, Barry Trammell with the Tulsa World. Ryan, 4 American Conference coaches got Power 4 jobs this past offseason, 3 in the SEC. A lot of examples in the last 2 or 3 years before that. What's going on in the American that producing coaches that make you guys ready to step into the bigger platform?
Well, I've always believed wholeheartedly, and I was in the American for 10 years, that it's the best conference outside the P4. In fact, for a long time, we pushed the narrative that we were that 5th conference. And, you look at those other head coaches, it's amazing to think about those guys that came in with me, that I'm the oldest one. That's strange to think about, but so much respect for them. But I think you think about as college football is changing, those other coaches, myself included, being willing to adapt and understand what this new day and age of college football looks like. And that's for those guys that have come in, whether it's, Eric Morris, who I've got a lot of respect for, who will play at Oklahoma State in the upcoming years, to the other guys in this conference that had the opportunities to go against. I think just understanding, hey, this is what it takes, this is what it looks like to build a roster. And ultimately, I think, I have so much respect for the American Conference and what they've been able to accomplish and will continue to do moving forward.
That wraps up our listen in. Ryan Silverfield, Arkansas head coach. Now, starting tomorrow, players. We're going to hear from one player from every team the Aggies will square off against on the 2026 schedule. Well, league play, SEC. I'll be right back, and we got to say bye-bye. We're done. Not yet. Wait, don't go, please. Please. We will wrap up the Louie Bellina Show on a Monday. The Louie Bellina Show presented by CC Electric. Residential, commercial, industrial services. That's what they do at CC Electric.
Listen to The Zone on the Zone app. Thanks to Loyalty Plumbing. The pros at Loyalty Plumbing are ready to serve you 24/7. For big emergencies or small.